Seriously Social podcast, where we're going to go behind the scenes with some of the world's largest social media brands and really dig into what's trending in the world of social media. My name is Lorenzo.
And my name's Kaushal, and we're just your friendly neighborhood agency owners bringing to you what's happening in social, but not only from a general lens, from a behind the scenes lens, because we are operators in one of the world's largest 100% focused social media agencies known as Socially In, and we're super excited to bring you everything that we have in store for today.
Absolutely. So today I wanted to spend a couple minutes digging into some updates and what's trending in the big four platforms in social media. So today we're going to spend a little time talking about what's new and updating in Meta, TikTok and BeReal, some changes that's coming along YouTube as far as YouTube Shorts are concerned, and a potentially massive update to Twitter that they're saying it's going to be earth-shattering. We're really about to see what the actual results are going to be with one of these new features in Twitter. But without further ado, let's talk about the Meta
Connect event. Yeah. So this is actually super exciting, especially for me, because if you know anything about me, I'm like a very huge techie, and you know, this like nerd VR space, whatever you want to call it, something that I've been fascinated with for quite a long time. I mean, to the point of where early on in my career, I downloaded like probably $5,000 worth of like AI and machine learning courses, and I didn't take any of them, but I just showed how passionate and interested I was about them. Right. So yeah, the Connect event, really one of the biggest things that came out of it was obviously the new headset that, you know, Zuckerberg featured, and really the capabilities of what this headset allowed. But I think there's some other important points that also came out from the event. We're going to address a few of them, but I'd say let's start off with the headset.
Start off with the headset. $1,500, my guy.
That one is what scares me, because honestly, one of the biggest things with this headset, because the technology behind it and its capabilities are so powerful, but in the general consumer adoption, which has really been the big holdup in VR, right? It's also going to cause the same bottleneck, right? Who's going to spend $1,500 just to hop into VR when most people don't even know the real use cases of what VR can be used for? In my opinion, this move is really more so for the business community and enterprises, because we're going back into the battle of open ecosystem versus closed ecosystem, the same way, you know, PCs and Macs, the same way Android and iOS went, and with the rumors of, you know, Apple and their new headset, right? Zuckerberg didn't call out Apple directly, but indirectly, you know, mentioned the Meta headset is going to be an open ecosystem. And I think dropping it this early with that price point is really for the technology community, developers, the people who will find the practical use cases where mass adoption starts to happen, in my opinion.
So, I would consider you one of those early adopters. Are you getting it?
This price point did scare me too, but I think, yes, I will get it probably within the next 3 months before the top of the year.
Okay.
Because one of the things, I actually have a Quest 2 right now, and one of the things that has been issues in my Quest 2, and I've been starting to use it much more, is the fact that I can't separate real reality versus virtual reality. So when my headset is in, I can, at points, I'll be able to see what's happening in the real world, but no color, I can't see the actual presentation, it's fuzzy. All in all, it really does separate you. In order for you to kind of come back to real life, you gotta take the headset off. The key difference in this one is you should naturally be able to keep the headset on and actually see what's happening in real life, so you can collaborate with the people around you. That, I think, is important. I want to use it for some practical business uses as well, so I think I'll get it before the end of the year.
So the reason I asked that is because the question that it makes me think is, did Facebook release this too early? So we got our Oculus around the same time. Me, you, Keith. We're ready to go. We were super excited. We haven't played it since we actually got it. Wow. So now they just dropped this. There's already issue with mass adoption on a $300 product. You just increased it 5x. Is that too early? I guess my thought would be no. And I think because here's kind of how I look at it. Similar to what Apple has done, I think Facebook has created a space in the marketplace for if it's trending, if it's techie, people are going to want to buy it. It's just that simple. People like you are gonna get it because that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Just that simple. If you want to be up to date, if you want to be in the loop and things like that. So no, I don't think it's too early in that regard. I think the concern is the sustainability.
Valid.
Are there enough of yous in the world to do it? Because I think that the market, personally, that they should be shooting for is more of a market kind of like myself, where
Sure.
if you convince me of the value and things like that, I can afford it. I enjoy doing it. Right now, I just don't see the use case in going and dropping $1,500.
Right.
And I think if they could figure out how to tell that story to someone like me, that's where it becomes sustainable. Again, so I'm not sure if it's too early, but it does bring up concerns about the sustainability of the launch of it. What are your thoughts on that?
I like that. That's actually a very good point. Early, I guess, it is really, who you ask, right? You're right. It is in my opinion, it is early for people like you. But then I guess the real question in my head would go back to, what is Zuckerberg and Facebook really planning, right? Them understanding and dropping this now, was their primary objective even the mass consumption, or was it really for... One thing that I've realized with Facebook taking a hit on the advertising side, because obviously revenues and things drop, is they're investing heavily into R&D for the future.
Okay.
It makes sense, especially with the whole meta move that they made last year, right? So they're investing into the future tech, and I think if you really think about the age of the internet starting back in the early 1990s, anybody that came to the forefront of the latest technology was early to an extent. The problem that ended up being is, in my opinion, you need to realize the difference between being early and being able to fund it and be sustainable versus you just being early and you run yourself out of business. Fortunately, we all know Facebook is a multi-billion dollar corporation, and them investing into the long roadmap of it, I think kind of plays out. But people are going to follow the developers the same way that ever since the internet really has been created, whether it was email marketing and search ads back in the early days, all the way to social media, all the way to machine learning, AI tech. Wherever the developers go, mass consumption will happen in due time, in my opinion.
So you actually bring up a super interesting point, Kaushal, and it's something else that came out of that conference, and it's actually that I saw a survey that said that 58% of Meta employees don't actually know the Meta strategy. So I find that interesting because what you just said is that, what is their strategy? What is their go-to-market? Is it mass? That's a valid question, and tying right back into one of the biggest outcomes I thought is that half their company doesn't even understand what's doing. So again, if you're talking about you released it for these early adopters, people don't even know what the organization doesn't even understand what they're working for, what they're building towards, what the strategy is on that.
Yeah.
That's obviously concerning.
It is concerning, and this is a very good point that you're mentioning, because I'm going to speak, from my own experience. Obviously, we don't run a company of Facebook stature or size, but from my experience, I've seen buy-in and understanding of vision. Even though every single really business core company out there represents it and has a voice behind it, I think I've seen very few where cultures truly embody it, especially at the size of Facebook, right? Like people in today's day and culture don't join the in my head. Now this is all my own thought process, but people don't join the Facebook, the Amazons, the Googles because of values, in my opinion. First, because all big corporate companies have a corporate responsibility, right? All of them have some good initiative, in my opinion, that they're going for. So if it was solely based off of that, I don't see how you could really separate one from the other. People base it off of the perception of working at a Facebook and working at an Apple and working at a Google. So for small organizations, I feel like it actually is in our advantage to get people to buy in. But now going back to the statement of only 58%, 48 or 58? 58% of people even understood it. In our own organization of right at about 100 people, I would say that's a close percentage of people who may buy into what our vision is. I think it's more so the responsibility of us as leaders and the leadership group to make sure that that's carried. And I think sometimes the biggest disconnect happens from the top tiers of leadership. So by the time it trickles down to the newest employees or the latest hires, it almost is completely broken. So they're not buying into the vision, they're buying into what they've been sold on.
In your opinion, then, is employee buy-in necessary for a company to be successful long term?
Necessary? No. Do I think it's the new age and shift of where being a successful business owner, some of that is required? Yes, but is it the only way to be successful? No.
Yeah,
Obviously, I think without buy-in, there's been plenty of companies that have been successful.
Right.
I think it's, if you're the type of person that has a weakness in being able to present that vision or etc., and you know that that's not for you, maybe you go the other route. But I think most people believe they have their vision and they need to share it. So I say people are more open to that now. You have to do a good job of communicating it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And actually, I think one of the biggest things that you said that I agree on is we have to communicate, any organization has to communicate the vision for their company appropriately to at least allow their employees to determine, does my vision align with your vision? Yes, we have to include the morals and the values that we're putting in all of those things, but where you're headed, am I even aligned with that? You know, I literally think about our own organization, and we're in such a massive growth mode right now. You know, we were interviewing for one of our positions. One of the questions that I talked to her about is literally the pace that she wants to work at, and is she ready? Does she want to work at a company that's growth is like this? We're not like this. We're like this.
Right. Hypergrowth.
Because it's a different pace. It's different.
I agree.
And if she's not bought into that, if she doesn't understand that there's going to be things that, yes, we're going to have plans and strategies in place,
right,
but we also got to move quickly. We're at that place right now where stuff's going to happen that's going to dictate a change that we have to do. We're obviously it's stability, but it's also flexibility in that stability because of who we are and things like that.
I agree.
You got to get people to buy into that, because if somebody was coming for us and they're like, no, I want to come in 8 to 5, do the same thing, sit at the desk, I can already tell you this ain't gonna work long term.
Yeah, and this is why I actually believe, going back to the Meta Connect event, why Facebook even came out with it, the reason I think they even presented that stat at the event is to help Facebook employees themselves realize like the disconnect. And I believe that disconnect really started to happen with all of the issues but the privacy issues, the data leakage, the decline in revenue, all of these things that started to happen, people started to really lose faith in Facebook, right? Stock price declined almost 40% over the course of the last year and a half. So with that decline, obviously there's going to be reason for uncertainty, doubt, what's happening, what's the future.
Right.
And I think when Facebook went in, polled that question, they started to realize, hey, like there is a true disconnect, which is why I think the event, kind of re-emphasize the direction of where Facebook is heading, what they're aiming for, what their vision may be. So I agree, you're right, we need to get that buy-in.
So the last thing on that subject, or the takeaway that I got personally from it, definitely want to hear your thoughts, and I'll share my thoughts on it, is they also released some statistics and some concerns about the lack of employee usage of the platform itself. So I think specifically what they were referencing is the Horizon VR.
Yeah.
And just the lack of employees that are using it. To me, it's that conversation of, is this a coincidence? Or is there a correlation that's happening between the fact that, again, your employees don't understand where you're going, they don't understand what the strategy of the market is, employees are significantly using it at less and less and less percentages? Are all these things telling a story? That needs to be considered. What are your kind of thoughts on that? Because, and then I'll kind of say why I asked about it. You know, I think about, I'll just use our salespeople, for example. You know, we're a social media agency. One of the things we started stressing relatively recently is that our salespeople need to be active on social media. Yeah. It's just that simple. It seems like something that's a no-brainer, but as you know, we have definitely people in our organization that aren't even also on social media platforms.
Sure.
So how do we sell TikTok? If you don't even understand how TikTok works on an actual user type of base levels right there. So using us, again, we're much smaller, obviously compared to Facebook though. I see the benefits and more pros to, you gotta understand what we do. You gotta be able to use the product that we have. So now tying that back to the Facebook conversation, is that an indication that, again, maybe they did roll this feature out too soon, or what do you kind of think about that?
I think that's honestly a very crucial point, because there's both sides of that story, and I think both are very valid. There is the flip side of adoption, specifically if you're the forefront of the technology and your users should be utilizing it. But I think that does go back to, because I think this is a little bit of untreaded waters, or not treaded waters, however, whatever that phrase is. And by understanding how forefront VR and that technology really is and how hard it is to use, let's take it back to the very simplest sense of social media.
Okay.
Why did people enjoy using social? Was because it's how they communicate and connected, whether it's with their friends, other
Okay.
people, etc. VR is going to be used for that same thing. The lack of that social engagement right now, especially because a lot of it is core business to business
Yeah.
usage, I think turns people away from wanting to use it, right? If I know that I'm not going to get that same social experience, even though that's what this may be intended to do, because my friends and colleagues and families are not adopting this yet,
Yeah.
why would I adopt it, right? Same thing with Facebook employees. I really wish I had the percentage of how much of their global workforce is actual developers, because outside of really them and maybe like the core sales team, I wouldn't expect a general user to use it, right? Their marketing team, fuck no. Their customer service reps, fuck no. So it's just like,
100%.
ooh. So I think in that sense, yes, it's early, but on the flip side, I think, like I said, going back to what the statement I made earlier, is like, I don't think they were trying to. So even if one of their goals was the general usage of their own employees, I think they would have pushed it as an initiative more. I don't think that's what they're really trying to do. Because I don't think they're trying to go for mass adoption. That's the main thing, is like, if mass adoption is the goal, yes, all of Facebook should be using it. But if it's not, then that's not what I care about right now.
And again, I mean, one thing that we've already learned 100%, mass adoption isn't necessary to be successful either. If they could figure out who their true target market is for this, own it and run it up, man, there's billions of dollars to be made.
Technology, Tesla.
Billions of dollars to be made in just a
Tesla. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, so good stuff in America.
recommend.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing kind of what's going to keep happening after that. I mean, one of the biggest things that's clear when it comes to Facebook is that, to the point you mentioned earlier about the data, the privacy, all of that. As we know, we don't even want to get into it today. The algorithmic changes that are affecting
Crazy.
organic, the necessity of paid ads and boosting that you got to put into the platform. They got to figure out a way to pivot as an organization, just that simple. I mean, they're mass enough where, again, they're not going anywhere.
I agree.
But at the same time, you mentioned 40% drop in shares and stuff like that. That'll start to raise some red flags no matter how big of a company you are.
No, 100%.
You got to start to make some pivots. So
I think they
it's
are
gonna be
gonna.
interesting.
A lot of changes need to be had. I think the Zuckerberg and team are up for the challenge. I am bullish on Facebook, but I do agree that there is room for concern, and I hope they can live up to the challenge. But I am bullish on Facebook long term.
Love to see it. Love to see it.
Cool.
All right, let's pivot. Let's pivot into real trending. Actually, I'm gonna let you talk a little bit more about this because I don't use it very often. I tried to use it. I'll give my opinion on it, and that's this whole BeReal. Obviously, it's a new trending app.
Yeah.
It had its place in the market. It was kind of taken over by storm for a second, and then per usual, TikTok just launched a BeReal feature. And so I want to hear your thoughts on BeReal just as an app. And then in a bigger conversation, let's have a conversation about the struggles of niche apps when it comes to different things like that, and just how hard it is to build a true business around something like that when a company now just can just take that feature, throw that feature into the platform, and then all of a sudden you become non-existent and things like that, which we're seeing every platform start to do something. If Instagram is doing something that's trending, every platform takes a step back and says, how can we adopt a version of that? Even LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn is starting to adopt a ton of more B2C features. Why? Because it's about engagement and keeping people on the platform.
Yeah.
These other platforms are doing this successfully. LinkedIn will be stupid not to adjust for the market for it. So BeReal, you use this.
I do.
Why do you, the idea, so like, for example, right now, the idea of like being like,
You should be real right now.
we should be reeling right now. I just find that concept super interesting. And I don't know if I mean, you know me personally, my biggest struggle with social media on a day-to-day basis like that is I just don't even know if I want everybody to know what I'm doing.
I get that.
Like, that's just that, and that's part of my comfortability. I gotta get out my comfort zone.
So that's the one thing. So going into BeReal, I'm glad you mentioned that. So first, I'll start off by yes, I am a user. It did take me a little bit long, I would say, to use that. I would say my general curiosity when it comes to social media, when something starts to come on the rise, I just naturally start to get into it because I want to understand what people are doing at the end of the day.
Okay.
So that really got me into it. But then as I started using it, I understood a little bit better of how it really distinguished or made itself unique versus the general platforms now. And even though TikTok has the Now feed, which is very similar to what BeReal is, there's still, in my opinion, a key difference of the two. Going back to what you said, putting your life out there for the world to see. the one thing about BeReal that I've noticed is first, even though there's somewhat of a discovery, in actuality, only the people you accept as your friends can really look at what you've done. The other thing is though, they can only look at it only if they themselves are also users of the app. So what I mean by users is they have to also post to BeReal in order to see your reel. They can't just open up the app and be like, hey, let me see what Lorenzo's doing, unless they posted themselves too. So it really is more of a personalized, one-on-one touch community, even to the fact to where the emojis or the reaction emojis, react emojis, whatever they call it, they're your actual face. So if you want to make a smiley face emoji, where you actually take a picture of you smiling, and when you interact with Lorenzo, you see Kaushal smiling when he hits the smile.
Interesting.
So I think it's a little bit more personable, and then I think it's really going for that first close friends feel that really Facebook came out with back in its early days. But you're right, TikTok obviously has it now. It is a storm. People are obviously going to adapt to it. The thing in social media that I think on this point that's very interesting is like, when you really think about MySpace back in 2003 or 4 when it really first launched in the evolution of social, throughout every year, there's honestly hundreds of thousands of social media apps that launch. There's always a select few that really set themselves apart that can get the mass adoption that we're talking about today. I am concerned for BeReal, to be frank, just because of the nature of TikTok. Those don't happen very frequently, right? This shift of major platform usage happens every few years. I don't think they've done enough just quite yet to distinguish themselves from TikTok to where mass adoption would start to flow over. They do have a unique point, but like I said, the same way that when Snapchat came out with stories and Instagram was able to adopt it very quick, if BeReal doesn't start to think about other things of how it can keep its community separate from TikTok, same thing will happen. TikTok will start to take over.
You bring up, I think I tagged you on LinkedIn in this video, and we were talking about that this morning actually. The power and economic impact of building a community. I think you said a lot there actually, and BeReal's ability to create a niche, true community, and the economics behind that. So, you know, we were listening to Gary Vee's response to the Hypebeast interview, in which Hypebeast was offered $1 billion for his brand.
Right.
And then, you know, Gary Vee.
Mr. Beast.
Yeah. I said Mr. Beast. Good. Thanks
for
clarifying. Mr. Beast was offered $1 billion for his brand. Gary Vee got on there basically, and then he's like, I won't take it for less than 10 Bs. Gary Vee got on there and was like, you cut yourself short at 10 Bs. The power of a community.
It is true.
The economics behind a community. And I think that was you that told me that, aren't there numbers that estimate that his community could be worth 100 Bs by the time he finishes?
Yeah.
That's where I'm interested to kind of see where BeReal does with that, because again, the features piece, people are always going to be able to hijack the features, do some of those different things. I think there's some true money to be made if they can capture and figure out how to almost help people monetize and commoditize their community that they have right there. If you can teach people how to do that, I think BeReal may actually have a really good chance to do something actually kind of unique.
Yeah, I am looking for it, because obviously the reason people would want to flourish over to there is the community aspect of the relationships that they can build, and then, you know, the content that they actually see. So right now that also is something that's tricky, right? Because the nature of BeReal is front-facing camera, back-facing camera. It's what it shows you what's happening in the real moment, which is why it's so personable, because it's me sitting here and then my laptop right there. What really desire does that give you as far as wanting to consume that, right? So I think there's 2 or 3 things that they really need to do. I think based on that unique feature that they've created, they start to get people intrigued. That's the first thing that you always want to do as a new social app, is cause curiosity and get people intrigued.
100%.
The next thing that you're going to want to do is make sure the content that's actually being on there is valuable. Whether it's just to their community at first and then it expands, but it has to be valuable to some nature.
100%.
Third thing that needs to happen is when they start to get that valuable content, they need to have master users or advocates, so to say, creators that will then be able to leverage. Same way Mr. Beast did on YouTube, same way that Charlie did on TikTok. It needs master users or powerful users that go above and beyond to push that. They don't have that yet that I've seen, and I think that may be something that's holding them back, because it is such a close niche friends circle. Unless you get somebody that's very famous or popular in there, how would others start to get that buy-in as well?
you know, it reminds me of, I put this book on, I told you to read this book. I definitely think that you just said something that's key about what you're talking about. Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point. That's literally what he talks about is, you know, it's not only the percentage that it takes, but what are those key, and I haven't read that in a little bit. It's not stakeholders or influencers. I forget how he actually defines that core group of people that whenever you're trying to get full buy-in and get over, there's a core group of people you absolutely have to, gotta get bought in that are gonna really help take that over the edge for you.
Ninja and Twitch, right? Like, why would people use Twitch?
Yes.
Well, I mean, Ninja started gaming and people loved gaming content, right? So I think BeReal has something. It needs to find the value content and the power users. If it can do those things, it still has a shot. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
That's good stuff right there, man.
I like it. Yeah, TikTok BeReal though, it is stuff to watch. It is.
It is.
Yeah, it's a very interesting world because social media has very started to shift from popularity to value content. If you started to watch TikTok, even the most powerful accounts, their videos will only get 200 views if their shit is shit.
Yep.
So it's value content. I think BeReal, if they can adopt that early, they have a shot.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's funny. I just gave a talk to about 25 young women who run dental programs, and one of the things we were talking about is TikTok and the history of it.
Right.
One of the things I was showing them that people literally couldn't believe. I don't know if you knew this, but did you know that TikTok actually surpassed Google for 2 weeks for the most visits to a website? That's just wild.
The amount of people that type in the TikTok search bar, the same shit they type in Google is astonishing.
It's absolutely crazy. Like literally absolutely crazy.
It's honestly, it's the most robust search engine when it comes to creative content, right? Google is obviously great because it's all the knowledge sources that exist in the world. YouTube is obviously great because they're very in-depth videos. TikTok has found that perfect medium of short form, fast-paced social content that's extremely valuable that people just love to consume.
100%. Very random one, or something that you said that I do think is even more interesting. That's in our society that's kind of changing. Is I've also noticed, and I've been noticing this, and I think that the use of TikTok and other things are accelerating this. People's attention spans are also starting to be like in that. It's almost like when you're having real life one-to-one interaction, people are literally like, if you can't capture my attention in the first 10 seconds, swipe on to the next one, literally on to the next thing. So that's an interesting piece, as you're very right, very valuable micro content in short, sweet segments. I'm curious to see how that continues to just change how people
I think it's a paradigm shift in people's consumer consumption of how social works.
100%.
It's a paradigm shift in my opinion.
All right. Last two subjects. Let's get into YouTube Shorts. So that is something that YouTube's going to be a big deal. YouTube's always been, or it's been a big deal for years now.
Second biggest search engine. Yep.
They are having to do things to also compete with what we're talking about. The things that TikTok is doing. You know, Instagram just launched some changes to their reels and different stuff like that. So specifically, want to talk about the new not the new edition, the next level that they're taking YouTube Shorts. And they're truly taking it to the next level, like we were talking about, in order to compete with content creators who are making good money on these other platforms. They're going far, they're building up brand, they're building up communities, like we've been talking about. YouTube has had to compete with that. So I was looking up, I saw a couple of things that really sparked my attention. Like I said, I definitely want to hear your thoughts on today. Is a few stats that I read. Number one, so YouTube just released their full 30-page shorts guides. It literally shows you how to make shorts, what to do, how to take previously recorded stuff, posting, scheduling. It's a straight up full-on guide for creators. That's going to be interesting. As a result of that, right now they're saying the latest statistics. There's 1.5 billion users per month for YouTube Shorts that are doing 30 billion daily views of YouTube Shorts.
Wow. Did not know that.
30
I mean, it makes sense though, right? The second largest search engine in the world now tied with short form content that is actually searchable. TikTok got close, but its algorithm still started to favor obviously like value driven content. On YouTube, value driven content obviously is still a big priority in that ranking, but it's also keyword search. People can literally type in what they were typing in YouTube to find longer form videos and get 10, 15-second clips of exactly what they're looking for. So that shift in shorts is obviously tremendous, and also with that shift in shorts, because not only the usage of shorts increased, but consumption of shorts increased, which is what made them have to create the creator studio, right? Same way that TikTok was allowing creators to earn money, YouTube knew they can't run ads on 30-second videos. If you run any type of in the between or end ad on a 30-second video, it is almost never digested because the video itself is already too short. I'm not sitting here for 20 seconds to watch an ad. You got lucky if I watched the first 5 seconds of something in the beginning that I was able to skip.
Probably because I couldn't get my skip button up quick enough.
Exactly. So knowing that, YouTube still need to generate revenue there, right? So their creator program, essentially, they get to keep 45% of it. Creators will get 55%. But creators, especially for this YouTube Shorts platform, are going to be less than 30 seconds typically. And now you get to monetize. YouTube gets to monetize off of that, and so do the creators, which is ultimately what you want to incentivize. So all in all, I think it was a smart move. I mean, it made sense on all fronts. I think TikTok really is what allowed YouTube to think about shorts as a very core functionality of the future of YouTube.
Money they're gonna miss out of, I can tell you that. They did it again, like we've been talking about, certain shifts. You either shift or you miss the boat.
Exactly.
It's just that simple.
Yeah. So I like it. I like the move for YouTube. I think Google obviously hit it on the head. They did exactly enough to keep. Well, they already had enough firepower, in my opinion, or the arsenal to keep YouTube relevant. They just had to make sure they didn't become the MySpace by not changing themselves. Sometimes by you trying to become obsolete, you run yourself out of business. YouTube had all the leverage. They second biggest search engine, 100%. And it was video content. They just had to adapt to what users were consuming, which is the short form TikTok style, and they got it now.
Yep.
So I think they're in it for the long run. For sure.
Yeah, look forward to staying in the loop on that. I mean, we're looking into not only how can we help our clients invest in that. How can you leverage? You said one other last thing that I think is a very valid point, and it's the SEO functionality between YouTube.
Huge.
That's something that we're literally thinking about launching as a service. Is literally how can we conduct SEO on YouTube? It's a real thing, and if we can crack that nut, money to be made in the space. We just talked about how much content's there. We can figure out a way to help when you search, get that 30 billion pieces of content. How do we get those in front of the right people consistently? There's some good. The economics
people don't understand yet because the organic of shorts is obviously so powerful. But Google has been since day one. It's had an ad platform that's backed it up from the jump. When you can start to advertise for the shorts, we're not there yet, but
it's
like I said, the opportunities are ridiculous.
Again, money to be made. Money to be made. We got to get on it now so that by the time we get into 2023, like we talked about early adopters, just as simple.
Yeah.
And then last big news that's kind of came out for the big four over the past couple of weeks is the editable tweet function in
Finally.
Finally. What are your thoughts on that?
So I really wish I had the date right in front of me. I've been a hardcore Twitter user. I really want to say since 2008. Right.
You're pushing almost 15 years now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and now I really want to state, because I don't know if many people know this, my favorite platform of all is Twitter. It's always been by far, and I don't know why.
Why is that? Gotta hear that.
Okay, great. So I think it's more of how my mind consumes content. My mind wants to read more than just sit sometimes, and not books, because I'll lose interest in a long form book. I like to read, and I think that's why the 120 or 180 characters, 240 characters essentially played a role. It was so fast paced. I never had to worry about getting tired of something. One of my worst things is when someone sends me like a 3-paragraph message, and I'm like, I really gotta sit here and read this. I'm like, there must have been a much quicker way to get this.
It had to happen.
Twitter allowed that, right? So Twitter, and now I've started to see longer form threads and things, and those are insightful. But in the early days, it was quick, it was fast. I could jump from one thing to the next. I think my own usage, because I'm not in my own head, not the most creative guy. It was easy, right? I just had to type some shit on the keyboard and hit push. So I think that general easiness of using it as well and being able to communicate that way, because I felt like that was the best way for me to communicate at that time. I just naturally grew to love it. Now, like I said, they have a lot more value-driven threads. They have power users, the functionality of certain communities, specifically crypto and stocks, and like they just started to build these super tight niches of fast-paced communication. And I think I was prone to liking that. That's my type of communication.
That's interesting. So, just based upon my personality again,
It's like text message. To me.
And that's what the thing to me is like, I don't really feel like posting personally twice a week. Better yet, twice a day. Like the idea of doing that. So that's why I've never really gotten into Twitter personally. It seemed much more of a headache than anything else. So like I have a Twitter.
Yeah.
I have literally never tweeted. I don't know if I will. I use it. I try to stay up to date on it.
Mm-hmm.
But just as a platform, it's just the idea. It's just the idea.
I think if you're somebody who is, trying to cultivate a following, trying to really start to inspire a community, then Twitter is not your first priority. I think there are obviously more important factors. I think Twitter is specifically, I'll speak for me in this case, really more for the consumption of education and what niche communities are talking about. And then I would say it's the fact that you can very naturally engage without having to create something so complex. If you want to engage with somebody on TikTok, sure, you can leave a comment, but in order to really get a reply or an engagement, you probably would want to do it then and create a completely new video. So I think that ease of usage, and then the fact that it's more for education and consumption of the education, I think is why I like it. I think the biggest thing about going back to it now being able to edit the tweets, which if I'm not mistaken, they only allow you to do it 5 times within the first 30 minutes, and at that point it's locked again. I really honestly think it's just the fact of the continuous complaining that people have done over the course of the last few years. It never was important enough to where it made that drastic of a change, but I think with all of the hype Twitter has gotten recently with the whole Elon Musk buyout and then the pullback and the stock dropping and then fake users was really the big thing. I think they needed to do something that got the community kind of like back into, hey, Twitter will listen to us.
That makes sense.
Which was one of the biggest asks for the longest time, which was, let me just edit my damn tweet when I make a damn spelling error. So
that makes sense.
I think it's more along that. Like I said, I still don't believe in the future of where social is headed by any means. Is it the top 3 or 4 platform as far as like usage? I would position it as, but it has its benefits, pros and cons, in my opinion.
Just a simple. I agree. One thing
There's
you said I do think is funny is the amount of fake users and things like that. Just imagine the percentage of the amount of fake users on every single platform. I'd be curious for LinkedIn to run an audit, for example, to see how many fake profiles of different things like that they had. So that's just one interesting.
It's gonna be fun to see because I really don't know what the future of Twitter looks like. Obviously, I don't know if everyone is aware, but with that whole legal battle between Elon and Twitter, right now the trial has been delayed and they're essentially back in talks. So the federal courts are allowing Twitter and Elon to resume negotiations and see if anything come out of it before they start to intervene again and move forward. So I really don't know what's happening. I don't know if a sell will go through. I'm interested to see because Elon's thought is to make it that private community where freedom of speech, people can talk literally about, be open.
Whatever.
And if that doesn't happen, I really don't know what Twitter's plans are for the future. Like I said, I think right now they're just trying to keep themselves relevant, which is why
you got to.
Make sense.
It's just that simple. Yeah. You got to. Well, man, this was a good first episode back.
I think we covered a lot of good.
I think we did. I think we did. So, man, we appreciate you all joining. Definitely give us a follow, subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I look forward to continue to bring you guys great updates, great content like this. We have some awesome interviews scheduled. You want to talk just a little bit kind of about what the plan is for some of that in the future?
For sure. So with this resurgence of Seriously Social, if you've looked at any of our, we're going to do it a little bit different this go around because we feel like there's a lot of value that can be had between the guests that we'll be bringing in, behind the scenes of what's going on in the agency, our own personal experiences for Lorenzo and I, but we don't want to get away from the hard-hitting behind the scenes of what the world's biggest brands are doing in social media, right? So we're going to be bringing back the general concept of having somebody on the show giving us an insight of what their brand or business has done, to make them relevant on your social media. If you don't remember some of our past, guests, we had Experian, the CMO of Experian here, the CMO of Elf Cosmetics, and we have some exciting guests lined up. I don't want to give anything away, but we want to get back into that. But we also want to make it more personable and talk about the normal day-to-day of what social media entails, which is what I feel like we're also going to bring a slight twist to this go around.
100%. And with that, we want this to be valuable. Leave us a review, leave us some feedback. Tell us how we can get better.
Share.
Yeah, man. We appreciate y'all. Like I said, till next time, signing off.
Thank you.